Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Notre Dame Football Show from blueandgold.com. I am once again your host, Ashton Pollard. I'm back after a bit of a hiatus due to a voice issue that lasted far longer than was necessary. But here we are. And as you can see, it's largely resolved. We'll see if it goes out later on in the show, but whatever. I'm here with Mike Singer and Tim Hyde. How are you guys doing, Mike? I'll start with you.
Round of applause. Wait, I think I
Yes,
actually have
welcome.
this sound effect I can play.
Welcome
I'm
back.
going to do that. Thank
Yes.
you. Thank you.
One more. Ashton Pollard is back, everybody. We're so excited to have her back. So, Ashton, you sound great, and yeah, I'm looking forward to the show. It's always a highlight of my week.
Yeah, no, I'm excited to be back. I enjoyed watching y'all, but there was a bit of me that wanted to just sort of on the topic. Tim, how are you?
Tim, you doing all right?
Yeah, I'm here. Ready to roll. Excited to do that little Notre Dame chit chat here for the next hour.
Yeah, last week we did a Twitter space, and Ashton and I were getting after Tim. So we'll see if that happens again this week.
It's all good. Never a
All
dull
right, we'll
moment.
start with our normal segment. What are we drinking, Tim? I'll start with you.
Always a beer for as Mike likes to say, for the people out there that don't like this part, but just enjoying the beer. Sitting here enjoying a good time, getting ready to talk some Notre Dame football to everybody.
Mike, how about you?
I just texted my wife to bring me some water. I forgot to get a drink, so I don't have anything. So that's my preparedness there.
I'm also drinking water, but that was on purpose, not because I forgot.
Yeah,
So
no,
yeah.
I would drink water right now anyways. I try not to drink too many calories. Yeah, and beer
Okay.
just makes me tired. Beer just makes me tired. I don't know
Yeah,
what it
me
is.
too old for this. Anyways, all right. Other segment we usually start off with. The best thing you saw this week. So we started this, I don't know, maybe like a month-ish ago, around then, Mike, during spring practice. Gives us the opportunity to just name something that's football related, but not necessarily like the deep analysis that we'll get into in a minute. So we'll start with you, Mike. What is the best thing related to Notre Dame football that you saw this week?
Thank you, wife. My wife just brought me some water. So
Cheers.
now
Cheers.
yeah, so cheers to everybody. So I'll pop this on the screen for YouTube folks. This was awesome, and I actually wanted to go to this, but I was not able to. This is a picture of Jalen Sneed helping out at a youth camp down in Hilton Head, South Carolina, of course, where he went to high school. His head coach, BJ Payne, runs this big camp that he's had former NFL players come back. Blake Fisher was also there. Logan Diggs, Jaden Mickey. So some promising young Notre Dame talent were there. So it was just pretty cool to see these Notre Dame players go up there and help out. Puna Ford played for Hilton Head. He's defensive lineman for the Seattle Seahawks. He helps out. Jaden Mickey, there's pictures of Jaden Mickey. So that's the best thing I've seen in the past week. So I think Hilton Head's like a 4-hour drive for me. I wanted to go to it, wasn't able to work out. But yeah, that was I thought pretty neat.
Yeah, no, I also love that. I think like Josh Fan, the South Carolina, I think he's still at South Carolina. Maybe he's in the NFL now. But yeah, there are a bunch of different players there, which I thought was super cool. Tim, how about you?
Real quick, Mike, your 2020 class of 22 cover guy was there as well. Blake Fisher. I saw him post something. So there's another one there. The best thing I saw is Notre Dame is rolling the dice and getting involved with a bunch of 5 stars. It feels like this hasn't happened in a long time. So the fact that they got, unbelievable running back, Mr. Young, visiting, and who I think outside of the quarterbacks, I know I've posted this before, is Caleb Downs visiting. I think he's the best player in the country outside of the quarterbacks. So he is absolutely one heck of a football player, and they're getting these two guys on at campus for official visits. I know Mike's posted some of the updates and his Lucky Charms and all that. It's an uphill climb, but they're getting him there. So something's happening with those guys. I think that's awesome.
Okay. We have some good questions already rolling in. So if you have questions, drop them. I'm favoriting some of them on my end, so we can get to them later. But yeah, so I'm really liking these. And then if you want a question to be answered right away, drop a super chat. We'll play the DJ air horn and we'll get to your question right away. Yeah, I mean those two are pretty important. The Richard Young one that Notre Dame's just out of the blue, bringing up a 5-star running back, the number one running back in the country per the On3 consensus. Like, yeah, that's pretty great. I mean, does Notre Dame have a shot with them? I mean, I don't really do percentage chances, but I'm feeling fun tonight. So maybe 10-15% chance. I'll take that. Hell yeah, I'll take that if you're Notre Dame. So yeah.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
getting them to
The
campus.
fact that that's literally what I was going to say. Yeah, the fact that they're getting
Yeah.
them on campus, that's the first step.
Exactly. So huge news. So that was awesome.
Yeah, and then I'll go last really quickly. What I saw, I'm actually going to plug a tool that we have at On3 that's really cool. So it's the NIL evaluation, and basically what it does is it combines a bunch of different factors, and they're all on our site. But the biggest ones are kind of social media, overall just performance, and then the existence of a collective or a collective-like organization at a school. So basically, last night I was looking at Notre Dame's page, and on the side it has the top players from every school. And if you notice, if you look here, Notre Dame's really top two, I mean, the top three are there, but the top two that I was interested in, Michael Mayer, who's a tight end, and Joe Alt, who's an offensive tackle. And that is funny because if you look at almost any other school, their quarterback is at the top, and then they have skill position guys kind of around him. So like Bryce Young is at the top of Alabama's, Caleb Williams is at the top of USC's, and not at Notre Dame. This is very Notre Dame-esque in the sense that it is a tight end and an offensive tackle that have the highest NIL valuation. And we get this question a lot, so I'll just answer it while I'm here. But that amount of money that's listed there, that is not what they have made to date. That is what the algorithm that On3 has put together thinks that they are worth on the market. And you can check that out on our site. Breaks it down even further. I'm going to actually write about it later this week too. So yeah, that's what I saw, and that's what I thought was the best thing this week.
I'm sorry, Ashton, go ahead.
No, I was going to switch gears, so you can go ahead if you.
I think the NIL valuation, like, I'm not much of an expert on NIL. I'm very glad we have Ashton on our staff at Blue and Gold because she's very much into it. So I always feel like I'm bothering Ashton when I'm texting her. I'm like, hey, I have an NIL evaluation question. Like, because this tool, I just texted her today. I was like, what do you think made Joe Alt jump from, and I'll actually pull up his page in a second, but, you know, he was like in the
his NIL valuation last week was it's $9,300, so call it $9,000, and it shot up. And that's part of what I'm writing about too. And I talked to one of the NIL guys at On3 about that. That is most likely due to the fact that the algorithm is registered. I mean, there's a lot of college football players, right? And it's also college basketball. So there's a lot of players that's dealing with, probably registered the fact that Notre Dame is creating that collective fund, Friends of the University of Notre Dame. And that's why it shot up. It happened to Michael Mayer last week. It happened to the rest of the team, basically, or at least the very top last week. So I think it's just the algorithm starting to correct for that. But yeah, you can see, I mean, that's ridiculous. 5,441%.
Yeah. So yeah, it's fascinating. And the more information and data that gets put in, it's same with the On3 recruiting prediction machine that I love. That's my favorite thing at On3, like not even close. And I love so many other things about On3, but the RPM is just, I think it's so fantastic. It's just all this data that, you know, gets inputted to it, just makes it so much more valuable and interesting and accurate even as well. So for me, I want my headcanon on this to be that they just saw hashtag Joe Walt fan club was a big deal on Twitter, and they said, well, if the guy's got a hashtag and it's being put out there by one Mike Singer, then he must, you know, deserve a, you know, 5,000% 5% increase in his NIL valuation. So
Sure, that is it. I'll in the piece that I write on this exact thing tomorrow, I will make sure to include that in my list of reasons why Joe Alt jumped like that. So
I mean, he's going to be a first round pick. So
yeah,
I mean, so it works for me. So Blake
yeah.
Fisher's got a big NIL valuation as well, Tim.
Hey, real quick on the algorithm, if it is accurate on the recruiting side, do not click on Dante Moore's then, because that thing is down to the 30% for Notre Dame. I think I actually just checked on it earlier today. I hadn't been on there looking at that, and I was like, oh wow, that thing has really dwindled here over the last 6 weeks.
I mean, I don't know what.
Tim, why are you bringing bad news to the show? We're trying to have a nice. Why are
Because
you
I
doing
just
that?
saw it today talking about algorithms. I love it. I absolutely love looking at this. Because like Mike says, it's constant information going in, and
Yeah.
I think it's a cool thing for recruit guys to go on there and check it out and have some fun with it. Is what it is. So
Yeah, and on the topic of recruits going in and looking at it, we were talking about this in a meeting the other day that one of our Texas A&M guys was out at a camp somewhere down in Texas and said that a bunch of recruits actually talk about like their evaluations and their recruiting predictions and stuff like that. So we know a lot of y'all don't necessarily love the NIL stuff, but the recruits do. And if the recruits like it and you want the recruits to come to your school, you should also like it. That's just a quick little plug on that topic.
Let me also add, I've had someone at Notre Dame like ask me about this in the football office, like ask me about how the NIL valuation works.
Yeah.
I have people all the time asking me about the RPM and yeah, recruits, their parents, they ask about it. Like it's like I love On3. Like this is like next gen stuff. So, and again, I get the pushback on new stuff. I always kind of give the parallel to my dad. Loved his flip phone, and then I got him an iPhone for a Christmas one year, and he was, I don't want an iPhone. I don't want to be the person who's like this all the time in their phone. And you know what he does now? He's on his phone all day. So sometimes technology can be better. So that's my spiel there.
People don't like learning new things because it takes time. And I'm included in that. That's not a knock on other people. That's also myself. Anyways, we should move this along. But before we do, while we're plugging all the On3 stuff, I'll go ahead and plug our $1 deal that is still happening. So yeah, you can sign up. You get access to all the sports we're writing about. We're currently deep into baseball stuff because the ACC tournament is this weekend, plus the recruiting, the football. It's not basketball season, but there's a lot happening with basketball transfers. We have a lot of that going on. You get message board access. It's all for a single $1 for 1 year. So you should definitely check that out. That will not be around forever. So you want to get it while it's there. And then, yeah, just before we dive into some of the recruiting stuff, if you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you hit the thumbs up on the bottom, leave us a comment, whatever. If you're listening back via podcast, give us a 5-star rating. Tell us what you like about us, what you don't like about us. We're fine to take both. That works. But yeah, we'll go ahead and dive into some of our main topics for today. So we're starting with recruiting. And Mike, you probably have the team rankings to pull up somewhere. There we go. Perfect. So as it currently stands, Notre Dame has the #1 class in the country, according to the On3 consensus rankings that combines On3, 24/7 Rivals, and ESPN together. And yeah, so Notre Dame has that 1 5-star commit. That's Keon Keeley for 10 4-stars and then a 3-star. As you can see, that's the biggest class listed on this screen. So that's the top 7. They have 12. Just behind would be Ohio State at 10. So people are still building out their classes, which brings us to our question, which is, do we think that Notre Dame can hold on to that #1 spot? And if not, where do we think they're going to end up? So I will go to Tim first. Tim, what do you think about the current state? And then kind of as we're approaching December and the early signing day.
I'm glad you're going to Tim first because I want to roast whatever he says. I don't care what he says. I'm just going to roast him for something. So
you and me
go ahead,
both.
Tim. I'm waiting.
Well, let's start. Can they finish #1? Well, I went back into the old blue and gold annals there. And do you guys know when the last time Notre Dame had the #1 recruiting class?
Pre-internet era for sure, right?
Exactly.
1942.
Oh, that was a long time ago. I was still in the United States Marines, and I was hanging out in this lovely country called Somalia. 1995.
That's when I was born.
1995 was the last number one recruiting class.
So
Some guy
that's my
named
fault.
Randy. Yeah, some guy named
I was
Randy
born in
Moss.
95, so this is my fault. My dad actually tells me this sometimes. Not seriously, but when I was born, it all went downhill for Notre Dame football. So
Oh,
sorry.
yeah,
My
Randy
bad.
Moss signed that year, and that did not end well. But that was the last class. And then since then, I know we were chatting about this on some of the message board stuff recently. I mean, just finishing in the top five, top five. Someone posted, who was it? Don Schuler had a quote, and someone says, "Oh, this guy doesn't know his history." And it's like they've only finished in the top five 4 times, and it's since then, since that '95 group. You have '98, which Bob Davie, Charlie Weiss had back-to-back top five classes in '07, '08, and then the big class in 2013. So the odds of finishing number one. I sent you guys a text last night because I hadn't been on the recruiting rankings in a while. Georgia and Bama were not 3-4, a week ago. So the fact that they're starting to slowly creep up, and those are the big dogs on the block. If Notre Dame's going to finish number one, they're going to have to get obviously Dante Moore. They're not going to have, their wide receivers are more than likely going to be outside the top 100. If they don't get the number one running back in the class, they're going to have a couple guys ranked 200s running back wise. So eventually it will drift down. A top five class is awesome. Top three for Notre Dame is elite beyond elite. And the stats have shown that over the last couple decades.
Do you
All right.
think top 5 or top 3 is doable? Or which one, I
Yeah,
guess?
if they hit on, Mr. Mike Singer's, predicted class that he posted a couple weeks ago, most definitely if they get those guys. But what's the odds of them hitting on those guys? So top three, man, and Mike broke this down one night. We were just talking about it off the cuff about just the rankings and the numbers where you got Georgia, Bama. There's a lot of top 50, top 100 dudes that haven't committed yet. And they're going to get their fair share. And then the next one, no one's really talking about is Texas. Texas has always had national recruiting classes. If they get Arch Manning, they're going to sprinkle in a couple more big time Texas guys there that are ranked high. Expect them to jump way up. Top five is huge. Top three would be absolutely amazing because that means they pulled an upset somewhere. And is that Downs? Assuming let's say Dante Moore comes. So then do you get a Downs? Can they pull that type of an upset? Because I think a lot of the other positions are falling in place where they're not going to get a lot of high end guys outside of really what Jason Moore, Jagasaw, but Jagasaw obviously offensive tackle DN, that's two guys right there. But we'll see. It's going to be tough, as Mike knows.
I have so many thoughts about this because I literally talk about this, I feel like, every day. When I texted you guys today, I was like, hey, have we done this segment on, our live show? Mm-hmm. And you guys are like, no, actually. I'm like, I feel like I talk about it all the time. Maybe when I go on radio or go on other people's YouTubes, like this always comes up. But like first, I was with Rivals for 9 years. So Rivals does their rankings different than On3. So Rivals is a point system. So really early on, whoever has the highest rank or whoever has the most commitments, like Texas Tech was number one for a while on Rivals because they had the most commitments. So I really like this On3 system that takes a rolling average. So right now the rolling average is 6. So it just takes your top 6 commits. So Notre Dame is 12 commits, but this is only taking it's high at 6. So I do like how On3 does their recruiting rankings. So when I think about this and cover Notre Dame for, I think this will be my 4th class, I do have to think a little bit differently because I think Rivals had Notre Dame at 7 or 8 in the 2022 class, and On3 had it at 6. Just the formulas are just different, and On3 has more data than just Rivals is going off of in terms of the consensus. So that's something I think about. I mean, Notre Dame had this number 6 class last year, like I just said. And that's really good, but it still felt like it wasn't Notre Dame's best class, I think, on paper, according to the On3 consensus, since that 2013 haul. Yep. But it still felt like it was missing just dudes. Like you're missing C.J. Williams, you're missing Anthony Lucas, like that Notre Dame could have landed. So Notre Dame like has that ability, I think, if they hit on more of these top guys to land in the top 5. But you mentioned that mock class article I did. It was like Notre Dame hitting on basically all of their top targets, maybe besides a Caleb Downs and obviously Richard Young at that point we didn't know about as a major play for Notre Dame. And I'm pretty sure if you would have plugged that score in, I did the math, into the 2022 class or 2021, it was still like 5 or 6. Like it wasn't even a big difference, which is kind of crazy to think about. And then another thing, the last thing I'll mention on this topic is just how different of a level A&M and Bama are at. I mean, just so we have the 2022 consensus rankings on the screen right now. Texas A&M's score was a 96.4. That was the best recruiting class in the internet era ever. Bama 95.5. And then you go down to 6, and that's Notre Dame at 92.1. So it's quite a, I mean, that's from A&M to Notre Dame. That's a whole 4 points. That's a big difference. So, I mean, for Notre Dame to sign the number 1 class, I mean, they need literally, they would need to hit on every single top target, get a surprise in there. I mean, if A&M recruits at even close to this level, you know Alabama will, and you know Georgia's going to as well. It's just going to be very tough for Notre Dame to get into the top 3, let alone, the number 1 spot in the country.
Yeah, I was going to say kind of on that topic, you talked about how On3 had Notre Dame 6th last year, but how the gap's so big. There's an analogy that I like that I'm going to borrow from, it's from like Dan Wetzel and Pat Forty of Dan's at Yahoo, 40's at SI, but they talk about like that gap as if you think about it, they're 32-ish. They're between 30 and 35 5-star recruits in every class. So think of that as like the first round of the NFL draft, right? So if Alabama or Texas A&M gets 9 of them and Notre Dame gets 1 of them, like that I think for me like puts it into perspective of like Texas A&M gets the first 10 picks before Notre Dame gets any pick, right? So that's, and like think about if the NFL worked that way. So that is kind of like a jarring way that a jarring analogy that they use that I really like. And then when you put that into practice, like for example, when Notre Dame played Alabama in the Rose Bowl, obviously that's multiple recruiting classes together, but Alabama, I think it was 25 former 5-star recruits on the field, and Notre Dame had Kyle Hamilton, and Kyle Hamilton was not even a consensus 5-star. I think he was a 5-star at Rivals and 24/7, but not ESPN or something. So yeah, that's like Alabama got 25 picks before Notre Dame got 1. Like, no way Alabama's gonna kill them. Like, obviously that's how it's gonna end. So I don't know, that just kind of puts it in perspective for me. Tim, did you have any final thoughts before we move to the next topic?
Yeah, I mean, well, my final thoughts is looking at, if you're going to finish number 1 or even the top 3, as we were saying, who's left on Notre Dame's board? I mean, cornerback wise, if Christian Gray goes to LSU, all their corners are going to be ranked really, they don't have a lot of high end guys like they're really might close in other than Jason Moore, the DN, and then 2 offensive linemen, and Charles Jagasaw and Monroe Freeling are both top 50 football players. So you have those 3. You get Dante Moore. They're not getting, if they don't get Richard Young, and if they get, their last 2 running backs, Lamar and Love out of St. Louis, those guys are ranked in the 200s. So that's not going to move the needle. And just same thing as wide receiver. Gallagher was going to be their highest ranked receiver, and he's going to West Virginia. So even though they are in some really good, it Gallagher?
No.
Gallagher is ranked ahead of Rico Flores.
James is higher than him.
Are you sure? Or
yeah, in the consensus. Yeah.
But I'm just, there's no high end guys that going to push Notre Dame up unless they get a couple massive surprises. But they're not coming in the skill positions that they're recruiting to help push that. And D-line's done other than Jason Moore.
Yeah. Tim,
You
real
know,
quick, I don't think we did a video on this with you or anything. Your thoughts on Cedric Irvin decommitting from the 4-star running back from Miami?
I looked at it as a positive. My first take is like, okay, that means they're telling him other guys they're recruiting. That's the way I look at it. As a Notre Dame guy watching it and going from there, is the fact that because they talk. I mean, wasn't he just there for the blue and gold game? So the fact he was just there, obviously there's positive conversations going on. So I'm sure it has something to do with, they probably told him, hey, we're going to keep recruiting guys. And they just got the pain from last class. So they're trying to restock that running back room. And they probably told him, hey, these are the guys we're doing. Do you want to come aboard still? Because we're recruiting a lot of guys. So especially if they get a couple of those guys. But I was a little taken back just because he was just there. I think you've done a recent a really nice article with him, or had nice quotes I saw on the board. So there was no him backing off visiting other people. He's been to Notre Dame a bunch. So that was a little surprising. But good news, I take it as good news, is in Notre Dame feels confident in some of these guys they're recruiting. So we'll see.
Yeah, Lamar announces his commitment Thursday, May 26th. So,
Love is dynamic as could be. That's going to be a fight because the way he's blown up, people are going to be arm wrestling for that guy.
Yeah, for sure. All right. If you are just joining us, make sure that you are hitting the thumbs up, subscribing, leaving us comments. If you're listening back via podcast, leave us a review. Give us 5 stars. Don't give us 4 stars or 3 stars. Definitely don't give us no stars. That really hurts Mike's ego. So don't do that. But yes, should we take a question, Mike? What are your
yeah,
thoughts?
let's do it. It's
We
a
can
great
go.
idea.
I saw at the beginning in some questions, and I was actually maybe going to touch a bit on this later, but there were a couple of Chris Tyree related questions.
Hey,
Nice,
got you, girl. How about this one?
awesome, perfect. So, is Chris Tyree underrated? He does not seem to get the respect he deserves, in my opinion. So, I've thought a lot about this and actually wrote a feature on him in our latest magazine that is coming out in the next couple of days. I think the issue, my personal, not personal issue. Chris Tyree is a lovely person, but my my issue with Chris Tyree is he just can't really seem to stay fully healthy, and he's not out there like tearing an ACL or anything. It's a turf toe injury. It's an ankle sprain. It's all of these little things that kind of have held him back. So I think he is underrated in the sense that he's so much more talented than what we've seen on the field, but I don't blame people for kind of having a question about him given that he seems to have these recurring injury problems. He also had a high ankle sprain in high school. I think from track maybe. But yeah, so that's kind of my thought on Chris Tyree. Do y'all have thoughts, Tim or Mike?
I'll go real quick. When he was in high school, I went to go see him play. It was Hopewell versus Thomas Dale. Nice little rivalry there in Richmond, an area Ashton Pollard knows well. And
Yep.
Travion Henderson was the running back for Hopewell, and he was such a freak. Like I loved watching him play. Tyree didn't play. Ankle. He missed a good chunk of his senior season. Like he battled injuries a lot as a prep player, and yeah, it's a good point. It's a good point you bring up, Ashton.
He's going into his junior year, and you know what? I was doing some running back, wide receiver stuff. I was looking at skill guys, and since the great class of 2013, he's the highest ranked running back that Notre Dame has signed since then. He was top 100, ranked in the top 10 in the running backs, and so the expectations are high. I mean, Notre Dame beat out Alabama was one of his few finalists there. So yeah, but you're right. He's been banged up, but he's also had Kyron Williams has been an absolute stud his first 2 seasons. But it is now, and just like you said, Ashton, he was nicked up on and off all spring football. It sounds like so. This is a big year for him because I think the freshman running back is had a heck of a spring from all accounts, and Estime got tons of reps, and now we know Diggs is probably not going to be back until the season starts or sometime in September after that. So I don't know how that surgery goes. So I don't think Diggs is going to be around early in the season. So Tyree better stay healthy because they're going to need him.
Yeah, and the big thing with Tyree that he's a really good slot receiver too. But now that we've seen that Price can also do that, and Estime's not going to be your Kyron Williams slot receiver, but McCullough like raved about Estime's hands. Like he was basically like, yeah, you guys think he's a bruiser, he's the human bowling ball, whatever, but like he actually has decent hands. So if Price can play that role and Estime can supplement Price, and obviously you have Diggs in there too, but to your point, it's kind of a toss up what exactly is going to happen with Diggs this season. Then Tyree, if Tyree's not healthy, that doesn't bode well for him if those other two guys can kind of fill that void. So, um, anyways, we will move along to our next topic. So, every week, if you don't know, we do an article on blueandgold.com called Cover Three, and it's essentially a roundtable that three of our staffers answer. This week, our question was concerning an over under win total that was put out. So, will Notre Dame football go over or under 9.5 wins in 2022? This one was answered by myself, Tyler Horka, and Patrick Engel. And I guess I can go ahead and explain my position first. And Patrick had a similar answer. We both took the over here. And that is, I think, and Tim is going to fight me on this. So basically, the way that I approached this was I personally think that Ohio State is going to beat Notre Dame. So then you're at best case scenario 11-1. After that, 9 of the 11 remaining opponents, Notre Dame has the clear talent advantage over. BYU is maybe a little close, especially with our transfers. UNC has a couple of really highly rated guys, but by and large, Notre Dame, you can definitively say they have the talent advantage. The two games that are up in the air are Clemson and USC. I think Clemson is more talented, but that being said, their offense last year was absolutely terrible. And that's not news. DJ Uyunglele just did not, he was not the quarterback that we saw November 2020 at Notre Dame Stadium. I've talked to a lot of Clemson writers. All of them basically say it's the same this year, and it's not just DJ, it's the Clemson offensive line. So that says to me that while Clemson's defense is elite and they have the talent advantage over Notre Dame, both Clemson and Notre Dame have really big offensive questions. So I think that you can argue that that might be a toss-up, and obviously it's at Notre Dame, it's at home. So I think Notre Dame can win that game. Will they? I'm not entirely sure. The other toss-up is USC. They have the clear talent advantage on offense. They have Caleb Williams. They have Jordan Addison. They brought Travis Dye from Oregon. They're clearly better on offense. That being said, their defense is absolutely terrible. They have not been able to stop Notre Dame in recent years. And while they got a bunch of transfers, we don't really know how that's going to play out. And I talked to our USC writer the other day for an hour, and he basically was like, there's so many questions on the defense. Like last year, they had Drake Jackson at linebacker, and he was kind of the anchor of that front seven. He's gone, and they don't necessarily have another guy in that front seven. So all this to say, I think 11-1 is best case scenario. I think that Notre Dame is going to beat Clemson. USC, I'm a little iffier about, but I think I'm gonna hesitantly say the floor is 10-2. I don't think they go 9-3, which is why I took the over. Mike, what do you think?
I think the floor is definitely. I mean, that's if the floor is 10-2, then it's like, I mean, then the ceiling has got to be like a undefeated season. I mean, because you got to have. I mean, the floor's got to be a little bit lower than that, in my opinion. Because I mean, upsets. What if Clemson is pretty good? So.
Well, on the topic of upsets, though, and I wrote this in cover 3, Notre Dame has not been losing to teams that they're supposed to beat. Like
Correct.
that was the big, and I know there's a new head coach. I'm aware of that topic, and we can talk about that. But Notre Dame doesn't really get upset anymore. Michigan 2019 is really kind of the only example, and that's Michigan, and they're always going to have a decent amount of talent. You don't have your Northwestern, your Duke, your whoever coming into Notre Dame Stadium and pulling this massive upset anymore. So that's kind of where sorry, I interrupted you.
Go. No. The Michigan game, I think, was like a pick 'em too. So Notre Dame was maybe favored by a point.
I thought it was 3, but whatever, regardless.
Still, I mean, yeah, that's not quite a major upset. I mean, North Carolina. I mean, two schools that piss me off are North Carolina and Iowa State, just because the media always hypes those two up every single year. I feel like. And now and they just never deliver. But still, you're going at North Carolina.
Who's playing quarterback?
I don't know, but they're still
got Mac Brown. Nobody knows.
Yeah, I don't know, but I mean, I think North Carolina fans might say the same thing about Notre Dame. So I don't know, maybe. But other than that, yeah, it's I don't see any. I mean, is Syracuse any good these days?
They have a couple of so Sean Tucker, their running back, led, I believe, the country in all-purpose yards last year. If not, he was second or third, and he definitely led the ACC. He was first team All ACC, and then Deuce Chestnut, their corner, was first team All ACC, and then they have a linebacker, I forget his name, but if this the one man offense, Sean Tucker. Last year, Notre Dame faced a couple of one man offenses. Was able to handle them largely. So they don't scare me as much. Although I think I predicted that would be, I think Notre Dame like 31, Syracuse 20 in my article the other day. So a bit closer, but yeah.
And then BYU, it's away from home, and BYU is typically they're usually a pretty solid team. So that I just I could, if disaster happens, I mean, it would be I could see a few losses. I could, but to stop playing devil's advocate and actually give an answer. Oh man, I was gonna say 9-3, but you kind of convinced me. I think 10-2 for the regular season. I think they lose to Ohio State, and then they split USC and Clemson, and they go 10-2. So that's what I'm going with. What do you think, Tim?
Yeah, I mean, God, how do you predict games in May? It's like Ashton's out there doing scores, and I'm like,
If
oh,
if we're not allowed to, then we're out of jobs.
no,
So
no, no, I know,
Yeah.
I
What do
know.
you want me to talk about?
Oh, we talk
Going
about,
on.
I mean, yeah,
I
I mean,
even I put in that article that my USC prediction, like, who the hell knows? Like, I literally put that in the first sentence.
no, exactly, because that's just, I mean, you don't know. I mean, there's a million on both sides, all these games. I'm a big Lou Holtz fan, and Lou Holtz says every week's a new team. Every single week is a new team, and you go back, especially how many years I've coached. It's like you just don't never know. The standard's 10 wins. They've won 10 now. One of those in 17, they had to get that 10th win in the bowl game. But 10. You look at that and you say 10 wins. Clemson, I'm telling you guys, Clemson's going to be. I mean, Clemson is going to be Georgia this year on defense. They there's some mock drafts that have 3 or 4 first rounders on defense for Clemson. So they are going to be stacked on defense. And with as far as USC goes, that's so far away. They're not getting, they're getting the respect obviously with the skill guys, but their offensive line's returning their entire, starting 5. So, and on defense, we talked last week in our Twitter spaces, they've loaded up on transfers galore. So and their schedule is so soft. I would not be surprised if they're playing in that game and they're 10-1 because their schedule is cupcake. So that's the other thing to look at. I keep thinking 10-2 because Notre Dame's got a lot of good football players. They got a lot of question marks, but they got a lot of good football players. They kept Marcus Freeman to keep this culture going, keep this going with all these players returning. I know they got question marks at quarterback Buckner, but if he's healthy, he's going to run around and cause so much havoc for defensive coordinators. And if they somehow could figure out this wide receiver, position, 10 wins is there. I keep going on 10, 11-1. Yeah, it's assuming Ohio State, but Ohio State's got a ton of problems as well. They got a freak at quarterback and a couple skill guys, but Notre Dame could take advantage at a few other positions. So I'll say 10-2. Ashton talked about winning the games you're supposed to win, but that was a lot of veteran teams and a head coach has coached 400 some odd games in his life. So that's going to be the kicker. Can Marcus Freeman win those games he's favored in and not have that at UNC, like Mike mentioned, that you're just not ready. It's a noon kickoff and you're just not ready. That's happened at times. So, but that hasn't happened recently. That's why I'm going with you guys, and I'm going to go 10 wins.
So I was on Ohio State podcast earlier today, and they kind of were like, "Hey, I know you're the recruiting guy, Mike, but what do you think about the game itself?" And I'm like, honestly, I'm so busy trying to track down what the heck Dante Moore is going to do that I don't really had time to think about Ohio State, Notre Dame. But the more I thought about it, it was like, all right, I think Notre Dame's defense is going to be about this same as last year, maybe better. I think Notre Dame's defense will come out very strong. Think about the offense, and if I were Ohio State defense coordinator Jim Knowles, I would load the box. I would say, hey, Tyler Buckner and Braden Lenzy and Avery Davis, Lorenzo Styles, you guys got to beat me down the field. I'm stopping them because what's Notre Dame's strength? Tyler Buckner's legs, good running back core, and a really good offensive line. So I am coming after and and Michael Mayer, obviously. I'm bracketing Michael Mayer. I'm playing you very aggressively, and I'm saying Buckner beat me over the top. And I don't know how strong Ohio State's secondary is, but if it's any good, then that's what I would do. Am I crazy here, Tim? What do you think?
No, it's exactly what you do. You're like, you beat me playing cover zero. We're going to load the box. I'm going to have a spy on Buckner every single play so you don't quarterback scramble, especially on drop back. Someone's going to be right in your face. You are not going to scramble when it's 3rd and 8 for 15. It's not going to happen. And we're just going to, and I'm assuming of the Buckeyes, they've recruited pretty good over the years, that they're just going to be like, Avery Davis, you're not going to beat me. Brendan Lindsay, you're not going to beat me. And they're going to just go on there and force Buckner to hit one up top. And that's going to come down to, and if he does it, the old saying, and you got to respect that, which then opens up Buckner for being able to run the ball. But you're right. They're going to load the box. The Buckeyes should. They're really good on the D line. They got some dudes up front. So they definitely could get after it up front.
Okay. I that was my theory, and I wanted to throw it at you as a coach. So, all right, I feel a little bit better about my football acumen right now. But hey, Ashton, do you mind if we get to a question?
No, go ahead.
Because someone called me a Jedi Master, which don't know why, but I love it to death. So I thank you, Michael. He says, "Hey, Mike, Jedi Master singer, love that. Give me your current take on the Dante Moore recruitment as of today. What's your opinion as far as what you can share?" What was that on 3 recruiting prediction machine percentage, Tim?
It's gone down, Mike. It's gone down.
So
since your prediction, it has really gone down.
I know. It was at first, it was at in the, like 80, and now it's down to 37.1%. But after that, it's LSU at 22%, Oregon 18. I don't know what to say that I haven't said before. I think Notre Dame is the clear number 1, and I had someone just ask me today on the message board, who do you think the number 2 is? And my answer was, I said, literally depends on the day. Like some people, it's like, I think it's LSU. And then I hear, it's not really LSU. It's Oregon. Oregon's really in the mix. Now, Oregon, I think they're getting Jalen Rashada, a big-time quarterback from Northern California. Miami, some people think he's going to Miami. Or that they're in the mix. They're about to get a quarterback commitment. Michigan, I don't think he's really into Michigan. Texas A&M's interesting, for the simple human fact of everyone can be bought. Everyone can be bought. So if Texas A&M is just throwing money out there that someone literally can't refuse, then you have to be at least somewhat scared of them, right, Ashton? You're smiling. Am I right?
Well, I was smiling because we were gonna end our show talking about the Saban Fisher feud, but we could just do it right now while we're on the topic. Do you want to go right now?
Yeah, I want to bring it full circle back to Notre Dame, though, and it's like, so there's those 5 schools, but I think everything's good with Notre Dame. Like, he needs to get back to campus. We're not 100% sure when that's going to happen. I do think it'll happen in June, though, and if that goes well, and it just seems to be trending towards Notre Dame. If he were like a 4-star, like top 200 to 250 player, I think this recruitment would be a lot more cut and dry. But when you're a 5-star quarterback and you're Dante Moore and you're a big deal, I think the process just kind of takes a life of its own and becomes a lot more complicated. So I do think the end result will still be Notre Dame. How we get there might be a little twists and turns than a more simple recruitment. But that's my take. So yeah, Tim, the Nick Saban Jimbo Fisher feud. What was your take on that? I don't really have many opinions on this, except for I'm just fascinated by the whole thing, and I think it's fun for the off season. Um, that's I like the hot takes, and I like seeing Nick Saban calling people out and going rogue, and everybody getting involved. That's all I have on it. I just am here for the popcorn eating, but I'll leave this one up to Ashton and Tim.
Tim, you want to
Yeah,
go
it was.
first? I have thoughts.
Oh man, what I mean, it was interesting because number one, Saban's at a fundraising function as he's raising money and complaining about a program, promoting their money. So I thought that was interesting. Saban, everything he says, he's smart. He knows what he's doing. He's basically trying to tell the boosters, hey, you guys need to up your ante. But Alabama, I mean, Saban's been on record talking about they gave out $6-7 million in NIL last year, I believe. He's gone on record saying that what his players earned last year, which is a lot of money. So it's not like Alabama's hurting. This fact that he's out there talking about parity in college football I mean, there's so many things that are laughable both sides of these guys. Saban talking about parity, wants an equal playing ground. Come on, you're at Alabama. There's no equal playing ground that he's on. So let's get real with that. And then with Jim, I mean, Jimbo just went personal because I think he's tired of it. It all started with Kiffin way back when, and a couple stories that popped on the internet. And I mean, he's definitely hit. Him and Nick. He says he hasn't returned his call. I saw an interview you did with him, or just 2 nights ago on a Texas TV station. He went on their local news and did a 5-6 minute interview, and he hasn't talked to Saban. He has no deals to talk to him. He's done with them. He basically has said, and that's I thought that was the biggest takeaway. You got 2 guys that won national championship together, 2 guys that coached and built up LSU, and that kind of faded away, so to speak. So that was my big take from it. It was both sides. It was just a bunch of guys whining. Got guys making $10 million a year complaining. So I found that interesting.
I loved it so much. I cannot even begin to put into words how much I loved this drama. I think the biggest takeaway to Tim's point actually is that, yeah, Saban knew exactly what he was doing. He was rallying the Alabama boosters more so than asking the NCAA or whoever to investigate Fisher. If they do it, they're not going to do a good job. They're the NCAA. That's how this works. That's exactly what he was trying to do. I think, yeah, I'm so here for the content in the off season. I think it is a bit funny that Nick Saban is the one bringing it up. I think, in all honesty, I think Saban runs a much cleaner program than Jimbo Fisher does. I've said that before. I think Saban, as far as certain programs go, Saban has his a bit more in check than a lot of places. That being said, like, they're all doing it. To Tim's point, Bryce Young made $1 million. The rest of the team, they all made like $6 million total. I think that Saban's honestly just mad because for the first time in quite a while, he's at an inherent disadvantage in the sense that Texas A&M boosters are really freaking rich. They are so rich, and the state of Alabama as a whole is not very wealthy. And obviously you have people from outside of Alabama that go to Alabama. I'm aware of that. But by and large, the Texas A&M fan base is one of the wealthiest in the country. And Saban is well aware of that. And he can't combat that unless maybe he can't combat it at all, but he certainly can't combat it unless he essentially calls Jimbo Fisher out and puts a target on Texas A&M's back. And they're an easy target because they did sign a weird number of 5-star players last year. So anyways, those are my thoughts on it. I think Tim and I largely agree there based on
and I like the fact here we were talking about Notre Dame finishing in the top 1 or 5 or whatever it is, and he finished as number 2, and he was kind of like complaining. It's like,
yeah.
really,
Yeah, he'll be fine.
Be okay.
It's gonna be
okay.
So
Okay.
anyways,
so I could talk for hours about Alabama money, the money they spend in that program compared to the other state, right? It's crazy. Alabama, he goes for, he gets whatever he wants. I mean, Nick Saban, if you guys don't know, I mean, he's the godfather of oversigning. It's the first thing he did at Alabama. He would go out and sign 35 guys, and it would be open tryouts in spring football. He would blue shirt, gray shirt guys. He started that whole process. He was the first guy that started having strength coaches. All of a sudden, you would have an assistant to the assistant strength coach, and there'd be 25 strength coaches at Alabama because a strength coach is what? You could coach in the weight room. So he's been a master at so many things, and everyone's catching up, and we're rolling from there. And I mean, analysts, he has, I mean, there's rumors he's like 50 analysts.
Yeah. His analyst list, like all fired head coaches, it's fun to go back and look in like Marchish and see who he hired as an analyst. And you're like, oh yeah, that's where that guy ended up. But yeah, anyways, Chris just put in the chat on the side, doesn't Notre Dame have rich alums? To which I would say yes. So everybody complaining that Tennessee or whoever is paying a quarterback, you guys can also do that. And I am aware that there are nuances around whether it's an inducement or not or whatever. But, and I'm not saying Chris is complaining, Chris, I thought of it when I saw your comment. You guys can also do that. So yeah, anyways, we'll bring this back to Notre Dame for our final topic, which is which new Notre Dame coach has impressed you the most since joining the staff? Obviously, there was a lot of staff turnover. Every single assistant Tommy Rees is new. Al Golden is new on the defensive side, and then Mickens and O'Leary, I believe, are the only ones left over. So there's a lot to choose from. The angle that you can do this either coaching or recruiting or both, whichever one works. So, Mike, I'll let you go first. Which new coach has impressed you the most?
Easy. Well, maybe it's not easy, since there's another coach I think Tim will probably go with. Well, unless Tim goes with Harry Hiestand, because Tim's got a big man crush on him.
Harry doesn't count. Because Harry, I mean, he's new, but he's not new. How about we eliminate Harry from contention?
Were you gonna go with him?
How?
Tim?
No.
Yes. Have you guys not seen what he's doing? But let's go to Mike first.
Harry's fun because he's been there before.
Yeah, he's not new.
Yeah, back in 2017, and now, Harry Hiestand. I mean, let's go. Hold on. I'll go first here. I mean, you get this guy, he's been hanging out in South Bend on the video recorder, texting ex-players, and whatnot, chatting with them over the years. Everyone thinks he's just, this old cranky guy. He comes into Notre Dame and he pulls two kids out of North Carolina. Two that were not coming to Notre Dame, by the way. They weren't. Absher even said he wasn't coming unless Harry Hiestand was there. He wasn't coming before. He was not. You read all his quotes. He was not coming. Jeff Quinn was not going to pull him out of the South. They get Pendleton. I know Pendleton's their lowest ranked guy, or Zinter. He's down there, but still, he's an up and comer, a late bloomer, tons of major programs. Two guys out of North Carolina. I said this to Mike on one of the recruiting things. They've only signed two guys out of North Carolina on the offensive line, 2012, and then in 1987 with Winston Sandry. That's it. And then with other coaches, he has the potential to sign two kids in the top 50. What Notre Dame assistant's going to do that? That's them personally pulling in these guys. So
no, I agree. The argument was not that Harry Hiestand. Go ahead.
Go for it.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say it's like.
I was going to say the argument is not that Harry Hiestand. Oh God. Okay.
Tim, all right. I'll say what Ashton's trying to say. Shush. It's the argument's not that Harry Hiestand's not doing a great job. It's that he's been here recently. So that's our point.
That was
true.
Our point.
True. And he obviously did sign some guys, but he also signed some bust and whatnot. You got to say he's doing a heck of a job. He's doing a heck of a job on the recruiting front. For people that had questions, recruiters had questions.
Tim,
and he's pulling it.
Let me just say this: when Jeff Quinn signed damn good offensive line classes, you know what I heard a lot of? He's just, it's easy for him. He's the Notre Dame offensive line coach. He should. So we say that to Jeff Quinn, but then Harry comes back, and it's just all praise be to Harry Hiestand. So
well, 2020, Jeff Quinn only signed two guys last I checked. And those two guys are never going to play, it sounds like, at Notre Dame.
They could everywhere else. But,
I'm just saying,
All right,
So
well,
Jeff
no,
Quinn
listen,
only
no.
signed 2 guys.
What
And
about
the
the
other and those two
2020?
guys,
You know why they're not going to be playing? Because they've got, and then he recruited Blake Fisher and Joe Alt the next year.
but
That's
Joe
like
Alt was
saying
what, the
Jamison
fourth
Williams would
best
have never
lineman.
played at Ohio State, so he's bad, and then he goes
No,
to
no, no, no.
Alabama and
No, no,
yeah.
no. I'm just saying, if you're gonna talk recruiting, 2020 signs 2 guys, and those 2 guys are going to be backups, probably career backups unless something happens.
Someone's got to be a
2022
backup.
signs 2. Hold on, he signed 2 superstars now, in Spindler and Fisher. Joe Alt was no superstar. He was no superstar recruit. Joe Alt was a superstar recruit. There's
According to me, hell yeah, he
Mike's,
was.
Yeah, exactly.
Mike's
I'm
going
just
to
saying
end
on
this
the
live show
national.
right now.
On the national. And last year's class is, and you've said this, Mike, as well. It's solid, but it's probably a ton of interior guys outside of Emil Wagner. So,
Don't you need interior guys as well?
Oh,
We don't
yeah,
just need
you
tackles.
can't sign
Not enough
4
linemen.
out of your 5 can't be guards. So he stands down doing a heck of a job, but that's just my opinion.
Well, Mike looks like he's going to murder you, so I will take over while he sits there and cools off. And I will say that I am most impressed with Al Washington for 2 reasons. The recruiting is very, very obvious why I'm impressed with him. Keeley was committed prior to Washington getting there, but he's kept him committed anyways. And then over the last, like, people are joking on Twitter every time I post Notre Dame commit because it's a defensive lineman, because he just keeps signing these top defensive linemen. Pulled the is it Boubacar Traore? Is that how we say it? I'm still okay.
No, perfect.
Amazing. Flipped him from Boston College. Jason Moore is still on the board. I've been very impressed with what he's done on the recruiting side, and then I'm trying to keep this shorter. And then talking with him, we talked to them a couple times this spring because both we got to talk to every single position coach, but also he was the head coach during the blue and gold game, so we got to talk to him twice. And his ability, I think, to just like soak up knowledge, like he reminds me a bit of Marcus Freeman in the sense that like he's obviously very intelligent and knows a lot, but at the same time, like he's not scared to be like, yeah, like I didn't know X, Y, or Z, and Al Golden came in and taught me that. Like I think his direct quote was, learning from Al Golden's like getting a PhD in football. Like he's not overconfident to a point where it's annoying. Like he's very self-aware, knows what he doesn't know, and is willing to learn. And then also just, he inherited a heck of a defensive line with the Adamalola twins, Isaiah Foskey, Riley Mills, who I think is going to be very good this year. But they all rave about him. And I've been very impressed with him so far. So he's my pick. Mike, are you okay? And would you like to comment?
Tim, there's there's going to be backups. If Notre Dame signed,
what position coach is going to sign 2 guys in the top 50? Which one?
Well, that has nothing to do with what I'm talking about.
Okay.
I'm just saying, like, there's going to be backups. If we go through the rest of Notre Dame's staff, they're going to get roasted. Jeff Quinn, and Baker and Carmody are, that's 2 of the best backups in the country, right?
Oh, yeah, sure, they're fine. Carmody, we don't know what position it is, and is Tosh Baker, who knows? He was a little so-so in the spring game, and obviously we saw what happened to him last year. They pulled pulled their red shirt off of Joe Alt.
This logic, Tommy Rees isn't getting out of here alive because, the quarterback spot, in those before him, it's been brutal. So anyways, Al Washington I was about to say this is a clear answer to me, and then I was like, ooh, Al Washington has done a really good job. But the biggest project has been receiver, and I think Chancey Stuckey's hit it out of the park. My job is dealing so much with high school recruits, their parents, their coaches, and just hear all these things about Stuckey, and I've been very impressed with him. Landing Braylon James, he's the 5th highest ranked player in Notre Dame's class right now, which again is number 1 in the country. I think they're going to land Rico Flores. I think they're going to land Jaden Greathouse. That would be a solid trio. They didn't get Gallagher, but I think they could get Malik Elzy from Chicago if that's able to work out. So he's another 4-star receiver. So I just think that Stuckey has done a fantastic job, and he's got an it factor about him. I was in his hometown of Warner Robins, Georgia recently, and talked to the head coach at Northside High, who was on staff when Stuckey was a quarterback there, and he's just a special person and someone who's very, very easy to root for. So I will go with Chancey Stuckey.
Yeah, and he definitely inherited a project, as you kind of alluded to, I think, at the beginning, where like Stan in Washington inherited very strong lines. Stuckey inherited a wide receiver room that has 2 people in it, right? So not literally, but um, 6 people, 6 scholarship people. So yeah, I mean, if he can turn that around, that's kind of the biggest project question mark. I guess you could argue quarterback, but because that's such a singular position, I guess we're talking group wise, or at least I am. All right. Well, we have reached an hour. Do we have any closing thoughts on anything we have talked about today, or just in general?
Tim?
No, good stuff. Yeah, no, the pick of Stuckey, that was basically going to be my number 2, just because that room is a mess, and he's out there recruiting his tail off, getting those guys, and he's getting some darn good football players. The issue, we'll talk about this down the road, wide receiver recruiting, they don't have the blazer though, do they? That's the thing that might be missing from this class, is a straight ahead burner, especially a slot type guy. But the guys, if they could obviously keep James, Greathouse, Flores down the road to recruiting. I like Elzy, by the way. He's like a little underrated type guy. So he's a good football player. Some of the film I've seen of him recently, especially some of his 7-on-7 spring stuff, he's really improved. So no, Stuckey's working his tail off, no doubt about that.
Yeah. The he stand again. The pick. He's done a fantastic job. I think this 2023 offensive line class could be better than that 2021 group or 2022, which is saying something because those were 2 of the best hauls in the country. But just the revisionist history sometimes just gets me going. Like that Quinn didn't get the benefit of the doubt that we would give he stand, or not benefit of the doubt, but he I guess he stand kind of built the O-line use, so he should get that credit, but it's just we just kind of dismissed Quinn because
when you read these guys, quotes, when you listen to these guys' interviews they've done, these old linemen, there's not, a lot of these dudes weren't coming. It seems like it. So he stand went out there and got him in the fold. When you read their quotes and you hear what they're saying and whatnot. So, and
I've been covering recruiting a long time. The departing coach always gets crapped on. It's just how it goes.
But outside of Blake Fisher, everyone else, Blake Fisher was elite. Everyone else was hundreds, 200s, what result ranked project type guy as they recruit, as you know. So it's not like they were getting high end elite guys.
Let's go across the board and look at high end elite guys everywhere else. And I mean,
do
you want to talk about cornerback? Do you want to go? Do you remember last week or 2 weeks ago when we went through that?
No,
corner is a mess.
Yeah. So
and as far as real quick, and as far as inheriting an offensive line, did we not watch the offensive line last year? I don't think he inherited a ready-made group. Not at all.
Well,
so
not entirely ready-made, but it's not like, I mean, he inherited 2 future first-round picks and a freshman All-American, and another one that would have been had he not torn his meniscus or MCL or whatever it was. Like, he inherited talent. I don't want to say that Lorenzo Styles is not talented, but I think we're all in agreement that Blake Fisher and Joe Alt, you're more certain about their future than about deals. I don't think that's a controversial take.
Well, we only know about Alt because Fisher got hurt. If Fisher doesn't get hurt, we would never have seen Joe Alt. He was not going to beat out Josh Lugg.
I don't know.
Joe Alt would never.
We never would have.
Joe Alt was Joe Alt was the
never?
fourth. Joe Alt was the 4th offensive tackle, the 4th one.
I know, but they would have eventually figured out that Joe, like maybe not game whatever. I think it was the 4th game of the year. Regardless,
so they would have benched Blake Fisher middle of the season. You're saying?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying Joe Alt would have played snaps eventually, and they would have. I trust that the Notre Dame offensive line coach and that Tommy Rees and that Brian Kelly would have figured out that Joe Alt is talented, and they would not have benched Fisher. But you have guys move around the offensive line all the time. Like it's not like Joe Alt would have never gotten a chance to do anything ever because Blake Fisher is there. Like there are ways to move him around, and there are ways to figure out if he's talented enough to play him on the line on either side.
They were playing him on the line. Number 45, a blocking tight end. That's what he would have been last year.
Yeah.
They were not
Okay.
they would never have benched Josh Lugg, a fifth-year senior captain. Blake Fisher, who dominated Jermaine Johnson against FSU. If he doesn't get hurt, Blake Fisher is playing all year long.
But what about,
to your point about not benching Josh Lugg, they might be about to bench Josh Lugg and put Patterson at guard and put Corral at Z Corral at center. Like just because Josh Lugg is a fifth-year senior doesn't mean he's not getting benched. Like I mean, I love Josh Lugg; he's fantastic. But I think the assertion that Josh Lugg can never be benched because he has experience is ridiculous.
But he wasn't benched last year.
No, I'm talking about in the future.
I think they could have put Alt or Fisher at right tackle. In this is such a big what if, and then put Lugg at one of the guard spots and bench your boy Kane Madden. I mean, why wouldn't that have been an option, Tim?
That's true. That's a very good point.
It should have been an option. If you want to do revisionist history, that should have been option number one in August when they saw Kane Madden block it. Okay.
Well, we're playing the what if game of what if Fisher stayed healthy. So
of course. So my point is, there's not two freshman All-American offensive tackles, one and both bona fide first-round picks, because we would never have seen Joe Alt. We never have seen.
We did, and the world is a better place for it.
He played his tail off. He did. He played his tail off against big-time defenses those last 6 games of the year.
Okay, that's enough, Tim. That I could address that comment, but I'm not going to because I haven't eaten.
We're getting this handsome man off the screen. Oh wait.
I love it.
All right, we're closing. Dang it!
Okay,
I keep clicking the wrong box. All right, Tim's fired for the last 30 seconds of the show. Yeah.
What?
Tim's out of here for the last 30 seconds.
Okay. All right, we've removed Tim from this show. Anyways, thanks for joining us. Before you hop off, make sure that you hit the like button, subscribe to our channel, leave a comment. Don't bring Tim back into this. Take him off. He's banned.
Okay.
Anyways, yes. Okay. I'm getting all distracted. So yeah. Our $1 deal still going on. You should go to our site. We're covering so many different sports and we're covering recruiting in addition to the actual football team, obviously. And you get access to the message board. It's a big month for recruiting in June. We're going to have a lot of scoop on that. I guess Mike largely is going to have a lot of scoop on there that you're going to want to read. And it's only $1 and you're going to regret it later if you don't buy it now for $1. So you should do that. Yeah. Thank you all for joining us. My voice did survive. Thank you, Colin.
Colin Parks' Ashton voice survived. So yes,
it sounds pretty good. Yeah, awesome. Okay, well, we will be back next week with more Notre Dame football talk. Tim's back again. Chris is a big Tim fan. All right, we'll see you all next week.